Hello, welcome to another episode of Field of Screams podcast. Today we'll be talking about Halloween 5. Halloween 5 had a difficult task of following up Halloween 4. Halloween 4 came out, surprised a lot of people. People enjoyed it. They got their Michael back. And it was a pretty good movie. So not only does Halloween 5 have the task of measuring up to Halloween 4, it also had to overcome the ending that Halloween 4 had and continue off of that. Now, if you're saying, I thought Halloween 4 had a great ending, I'll agree with you for Halloween 4. But if you're making a follow-up to that movie, Jamie going up, killing her mom, supposedly in 4, and Dr. Loomis screaming, no, 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 because Jamie is supposedly converted to evil. Akkad wasn't doing that. Akkad was not going to have a movie where a little girl is now the killer. He learned his mistake with Halloween 3. People got really mad that Michael Myers was gone. They brought Michael Myers back. Akkad might be a little foolish if they went away from Michael Myers again. So that's why Akkad was so persistent, saying, no, 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 we need our boogeyman. He knows what the people want. People want Michael Myers. So the ending of Halloween 4, Michael Myers gets shot up to pieces, falls into the grave or whatever it's supposed to be, a mine, and then they throw dynamite down in the hole. And anyone watching Halloween 4, you would think that would be the end of Michael Myers, but Halloween 5 had the task of trying to have Michael Myers live through that. So they had him crawl through a hole, he falls into a river. He's floating down the river, and then eventually he hits land to where a guy heals him up for a year until he's able to come back to life. And this is one of the scenes that this movie's constantly poked fun at. They're like, oh, Michael Myers is river rafting. Like, what's going on here? I can't take this dude serious. I get it, but I don't know what other route they were supposed to go with that. I guess supposedly the guy who heals him back to health or has him at a shelter, I think he was supposed to be like some voodoo doctor, and there are some deleted scenes of him doing like rituals on Michael. It would have flowed better with the Cult of Thorn that they established in this movie, but they cut that out. Then we get Jamie waking up in, I don't really know if it's a psych ward. It's kind of like a hospital. She wakes up, she goes to scream, but it's not even really a scream because she can't talk anymore. She went mute after the events in Halloween Part 4. And she's got this psychic connection with Michael Myers now. And it turns out she really didn't kill her mom. She attacked her. They stated that she attacked her. And they do this all through dialogue really quickly. Loomis, of course, is right there with Jamie. And the part, I love Dr. Loomis. But there's a part to where Jamie's freaking out, spazzing, and then the doctor comes in and he announces out, he goes, her throat's closing up. She can't breathe. We got to open this back up. And he goes to help her out, and Dr. Loomis comes out of nowhere and he's like, no! And stomps the doctor right there. And the doctor listens. Dr. Loomis is just this character in the franchise, whether you're a policeman, a doctor, a surgeon, whatever. When Loomis says no, he's going to stop you with whatever you're doing. And he's going to tell you why you're wrong. And that's exactly what he did. And Jamie ends up being fine. Now I'm emphasizing this beginning here because I do think of how this movie tries to recover from the ending of Part 4 and explain it without it being too crazy. Right from the get-go, we got the Michael Myers floating down the river. We got Jamie, a mute Jamie who can't talk. And I bet some people, they're kind of like, oh geez, we gotta fall around a kid who can't even talk. And then she has a psychic connection to Michael Myers, and even that seems a little left field compared to what we're used to seeing. So, as rough as this movie gets, I do think that kind of ties in with the ending of Part 4 affecting how this movie starts. Another thing I do want to critique, and it kind of had to happen since Jamie attacked her mom, is Jamie starting out in that little children's ward or wherever she's supposed to be with the doctors. Halloween movies do not do well when the main character is either A, in a hospital, or B, in a mental ward. Anytime that happens, usually there's some struggle in that movie. I mean, I've never heard of someone excited about Jamie Lee Curtis being in the hospital in Halloween 2, or Halloween Kills, or when she's in the psych ward in Resurrection. Those weren't very good paths that those movies took. I mean, let's just face it, it's kind of boring when the main character is subdued in a bed and forced to lay in a bed by professionals, whether that be doctors or whatever. Now, I will say later on, whenever Jamie's at this complex, Michael Myers does pursue her, and she does run away from him, and it's a great chase scene. I don't know if I want to say one of the best in the franchise, but it's definitely up there. The atmosphere was great, and I mean, it happens because she's at this place, so I guess that is one benefit to her being here. So I've talked about Jamie being mute already, and how that's kind of disappointing. I mean, Danielle Harris does a fantastic job in this movie and Part 4. And in Part 4, I did not find her speaking grating at all. So it's just really disappointing that she can't talk. But moving on from her, because, I mean, once we talk about Jamie, you gotta talk about Rachel. And I'm sure all of you know what I'm gonna say next. We spend all of Halloween 4 getting to know Rachel, liking Rachel, realizing she's a great sister, and then she dies 21 minutes into this film. Now, with horror movies, there's two ways that this could go. You know, a movie can be like Hereditary, to where an early death can really set the tone for the film. You know, it can tell you that there's stakes here. And then there's like the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 way, where there's really good characters that you like, and then they dispatch of them super early. It's just disappointing. I mean, everyone wanted to see Rachel stick around, at least to the end of the movie. But I mean, the director wanted to make this film his. And I mean, like, in his defense, Rachel already had her character arc in Part 4. You know, she was the bad sister that turned good sister, you know, did her job. In Halloween 5, what is she really supposed to do? I mean, is she going to leave Jamie alone and then be there for her when Michael Myers comes back? It just would have been repeating things. So, I mean, maybe that's the route they wanted to go. But with her dying so early, like, it really just opens up the door for another character, and the character we get is Tina. Whoa, 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 put down your pitchforks. Put it down. Put it down, okay? Take it easy. I know she annoys some people, but I'm going to try to defend her a little bit. I feel like I've been kind of crapping on the things that this movie's been doing, so I'm going to kind of turn it around a bit, because I think some of the hate that Tina gets is a little misconstrued. In my opinion, I think a lot of anger that comes from the early death of Rachel tends to get aimed at Tina. And I know that Tina does some goofy, wild things, but I mean, that's her character. She's a free-spirited girl. She kind of does what she wants, and she's not afraid to be weird. Now, anytime you take a character like Rachel, who's extremely calm, I think really relatable to some people, and you replace her with the Tina, who's just more... Tina's pretty wild. And I honestly like Tina. I do. Even when she comes in doing the bottom, you know, however you want to do it. You know, she's there to have fun. That's what she does. She's friends with Rachel. Her little sister is in the hospital. She's mute. She's there trying to make her laugh. And, you know, if she annoys you, I mean, she's trying to entertain a child. Think about that. Now, I'm going to come back to Tina a little bit later, because I do want to talk about Dr. Loomis here. Dr. Loomis is now at peak craziness. I mean, there's a scene to where Jamie's sitting in bed. Dr. Loomis is like, I know you know where he is. Why are you protecting him? And he's like throwing her breakfast across the room. He's shaking her like crazy. He even says the line, Michael Myers just pulled up a 8-year-old's coffin. What do you think he's going to do with that? basically insinuating that he's going to put her into the coffin. Something you probably don't want to tell a little child. But I mean, Dr. Loomis knows that Jamie has that psychic connection, and this is his way that he can get to Michael. I mean, what round is this that Loomis is going with Michael? I mean, Loomis is sick of this cat and mouse game. He wants to end it during this movie. There's no more kind, calm Loomis. That is gone. He is just crazy in this movie. And I find him very entertaining. Once we start following around Tina, we run into Tina's friends. We have Sam, who's actually very pretty, and I think she's very normal. And I know I say normal, and that's like, why you just called someone normal, but when you look at the rest of the friends, like, she is really the kind of the normal one in the group, especially like her boyfriend Spitz. That's literally the one character I can't stand. When people are like, oh, Tina's annoying. No, Spitz is annoying. I mean, this guy's like trying to do Jim Carrey impressions throughout the whole movie, like cackling, giggling, going, like, the dude is over the top every time he's on screen. I can't stand Spitz. Then there's Michael, who is Tina's boyfriend, who is just very obsessed with this car. He gets mad anytime anyone touches it. Michael meets a pretty quick demise. The real Michael, the one we all love, he comes and just scratches the crap out of the car. Tina's Michael tries to give him a knuckle sandwich. Michael Myers says, I don't think so, and kills him rather quickly. I mean, the kills are pretty good in this movie. Michael Myers takes a pitchfork to Spitz, which, that was good. That's towards the end when they're in the barn. And then he uses a scythe against Sam. Yeah. Which, the whole sequence in the barn, it kind of reminded me of a Friday the 13th type atmosphere mixed with Halloween, because Michael Myers does a lot of stalking in this movie. Sometimes good, sometimes not good. I think there's literally a scene where Tina's walking and you see Michael Myers literally like kicking leaves under a tree. And it's like, what was the dude doing? Like, literally, you're supposed to be in the background. Every other Halloween movie, Michael Myers is just, like, really still. But this one, he's just kind of, like, walking around, pacing back and forth, again, kicking acorns. Just really goofy looking. Michael Myers also goes back to his cruising ways by taking a mask and acting like Tina's boyfriend. There's a scene where he picks up Tina, she gets in the car, she's talking to him, she's like flirting with him. Michael Myers isn't saying anything, but Tina doesn't know because her boyfriend Michael kinda sucked and probably never said anything either, so she didn't really notice. But she does go and like kiss Michael Myers, and when she does, the way they filmed it was really good because it just leaves you tense for a moment, like, oh man, he's about to smash Tina's face into the dashboard. Never happens, but it's a nice suspenseful scene. And I think maybe that kill of Rachel, you already know stakes are at hand. They're not afraid to kill people in this movie. So when she goes in for that kiss, you're just expecting it, but it never happens. While they're doing that car scene, Jamie's doing like some costume competition with Dr. Loomis there. And I mean, Dr. Loomis wanted Tina to stay at that little competition. And she's like, no, I'm going out to party. Which I don't blame her. Again, like, people are like, oh, Tina would even stay with Jamie. And it's like, guys, she was friends with her sister. Like, she did not have an obligation to stick around with little Jamie. And Dr. Loomis is crazy. If you met a real-life Dr. Loomis, are you telling me that you would stay at this place where kids are dressing up for Halloween, and really for no reason? Like, there's no way you would stay, especially in your high school days. There's a party, your friends are going to be there. There's going to be like 40 people. You feel safe in numbers. There's no reason for Tina to stay. It's unfortunate what happens to Jamie. I mean, Jamie is my favorite character of this, like, little trilogy. And if I were in high school, I probably wouldn't stay either. I don't know. Maybe that's me. When Tina does leave that place, though, there is a part where Loomis looks at the two cops and he's like, "Arrest that woman!" And they're just like, "We can't. She didn't do anything. She's leaving a public building." And Loomis just gets all mad. Which, by the way, the sound effects of those cops walking, it is pretty stupid. It's like someone in the editing department. They're like, "Hey, these cops are supposed to be stupid. What if we do little clown horns?" It's like, come on, man. It's like the bullies in Power Rangers when they play the sound effects to let kids know that, like, hey, these bullies are dumb. That's what they did for these cops in Halloween 4. Though they get killed pretty quickly, too. So, I mean, they get their demise for being stupid. So it all works out in the end. While Jamie is at the little costume thing, she meets a friend named Billy. Now, little Bill has a stutter. So we have a mute child and now a child with a stutter. It's just kind of crazy that they paired them two together. But Jamie ends up having like a convulsion. She has like a psychic vision of where Tina's at. Loomis and all the cops like run around her and they're like, what's going on? And the next scene is just like so crazy. It's hilarious. People hate this scene. It's when Tina's at the gas station and Jamie's trying to tell him and she's like, and Dr. Loomis is like, "What? What is she saying? What is she saying? And what, is she at Walmart? What's going on?" And then Billy's like, cookie. And he's like, "Cookie what? Cookie what?" And then finally they get out Cookie Woman. And Loomis is like, "Cookie Woman? Who's Cookie Woman?" And finally the cops are like, "Oh, of course, the gas station." And that's how they knew where to pick up Tina. Because of the lady with giant cookies where her breasts are. Great scene. Now, I've already kind of talked about the barn scene. The party in the barn scene, I feel like it just gives awesome Halloween vibes. A lot of people love Halloween 4 because it gives the Halloween atmosphere. I think Halloween 5 is no different. You definitely get the sense that it is Halloween night during this movie. And after the barn scene, like, Jamie ends up running away. Loomis is on hot pursuit. And eventually we get to where Tina is on the run. And so is Jamie and Billy. Michael Myers ends up just getting in his car. And he goes into full pursuit after them. And while he's like in full pursuit, like I think they play the Halloween theme. And it is just great. It's my favorite chase scene in the franchise. Michael Myers literally just like drifting in the woods. It is awesome. I don't care if people say it's cheesy, it's overdone. I mean, we've seen Michael Myers drifting in the original Halloween, so let's not act like he's a bad driver. We've seen time and time again in other Halloween movies, Michael Myers is perfectly capable of driving a car, and he's pretty good at it. He speeds. He slams on his brakes. He's not incapable of doing that. So, I mean, the chase scene of him just weaving through cars and Jamie screaming at the top of her lungs, and eventually it leads to Michael Myers crashing into a tree. Just fantastic. Tina ends up sacrificing herself to protect Jamie. Again, she has a very similar arc to Rachel in Halloween 4. In the beginning of the movie, you know, she leaves Jamie. She's doing high school things. She's going to the party. She eventually chases after Jamie and helps her get away. She did not have to do that. This is not her own sister. I know she was close friends, but I mean, I think this character goes far and above, and she does something that not a lot of people would actually do in real life. You can say that, you know, your friends have siblings and you would always protect them, but when you have a big giant boogeyman who has been resurrected many, many times, and the one person directing you to stay with Jamie is this crazy Dr. Loomis, I don't think a lot of people would follow through with it. I really don't. It's a scary situation. I mean, she just watched all of her friends get butchered, and yet she still goes and helps Jamie. I think Tina's a great character. I think she's fun, she's pretty, she's sassy, she does what she wants, but she even redeems herself when she was leaving Jamie alone in the beginning. I mean, she did the same arc as Rachel. I think she's a good character. The last thing I want to comment about before I wrap this up is the very ending. It's like the showdown between Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers. I mean, we've been teased this movie after movie, And unlike the David Gordon Green trilogy, we get some payoff. Loomis being off his rocker, he uses Jamie as bait. Things go bad, and Michael does dispose of Loomis a little bit. And Jamie kind of has a showdown with Michael to where, he corners her into a room. She lays down in that little girl's coffin that Dr. Loomis foreshadowed in the very beginning. She calls him Uncle. It causes him to pause. And throughout this movie, we've been seeing this little symbol on his wrist. It kind of teases to us that Michael Myers is being controlled by some mystical force that we're not sure of yet. But it shows Michael in pain. And there is the scene where he cries, the tear falls. A lot of people hate it. But I was actually really into it when I first watched it. We constantly just get this emotionless Michael Myers, and I know that's scary. But we're in the 5th movie of this franchise. This is at least something pushing the rock in a direction and kind of providing a narrative. Eventually, when Michael Myers breaks out of, he goes back into the trance and tries to kill Jamie, Loomis grabs Jamie and, gets her down to the spot to where he could drop this big metal net on Michael Myers. And Loomis looks creepy in this scene. He has just gone mad. He drops the net on Michael Myers. He then starts hitting him, screaming, "Die," like he's Corey Feldman in Friday the 13th Part 4. It reminds me just of, he's like, "Die, die, die." And he hits him so hard that Loomis eventually has either a heart attack or stroke and falls on top of Michael Myers. It's a great fight scene between these two. We needed it, and this movie delivers on it. I think it's a fantastic ending. I know there's a little scene afterwards where Michael Myers is in jail, and of course he still has on his mask, which is very silly. If you've ever been to jail or worked at a jail, which I actually worked at a jail for a little bit, they always search the clothing and everything, and no, if you're wearing a mask, you will not wear that in your jail cell. But it is kind of a sad moment to where you're seeing him play with his cuffs. And then the Men in Black, which is being teased throughout this whole film, breaks him out by shooting up the place, and it leaves you on a cliffhanger. Now, since we've talked about the whole movie, the whole Man in Black concept, a lot of people frown upon it in Part 5. They're like, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, you're right, they didn't. But I think it would have been accepted a lot more if Part 6 actually would have handled the Man in Black well. And even if you like Part 6, you can't tell me when you're watching Part 5 that you're like, oh yeah, of course, this is a cult, and they're going to control Michael to impregnate Jamie. That's the direction we're going to go. Are you kidding me? Part 6 fumbled it so hard that I think Part 5 gets the after effects. So, this movie gets ridiculed a lot, but I think it's partially because it's sandwiched in between a pretty tough ending in Part 4, which again, Part 4 is a great movie, but it's hard to follow up on its ending because they annihilate Michael Myers, and then they turn the little girl who's the good person into a bad guy by stabbing her mom, and you have to continue that. But then the movie that follows you is just chaos behind the scenes. 4 different directors, tons of different writers, management change, you name it, and you can tell there is chaos. And the movie falters, and a result of that, we're not talking about Part 6 yet, but I think Part 5 gets slacked on so much because of the terribleness of Part 6. I know that's harsh, but I think it is true. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie definitely has its flaws, it has its goofy parts. I talked about all of them here, I don't need to go through them again. Now, I will say, I do feel like I am a bit biased towards this film. As a child, Halloween 4 was my favorite one to watch every year. A lot of people tell me they watch the first Halloween every year, or the second one, or whatever one's your favorite. But as a kid, Halloween 4 came on every year on AMC, and I would watch it every year multiple times. Now during that, I don't know how I managed to do this, but I had no idea that Part 5 existed. And when I found out they continued the story of Jamie and Rachel, I got very excited and I had to check it out. Now, as a kid, and in all little kids' minds, everything just always seems great to you. And this movie's like no exception. I thought this movie was like peak cinema as a child. As I grew older, there was a certain amount of time to where like I kind of quit watching it for a bit. And I remember talking to a friend and we were talking about Halloween movies. And he's like, yeah, 4's pretty good. I'm like, yeah, 4's great, 5's great. And he's like, whoa, no. 5's pretty bad. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, 5's fantastic. And he's like, no, you haven't watched it in a while. You need to go back to it. And he's like, man, listen to any horror podcast. They will tell you that part 5 is just terrible. You got to do it. So I did check out a few podcasts, and they did echo his claims. And I was like, what world have I been living in? And I had to go back and rewatch it. And when I rewatched it, I saw its flaws then that I did not see as a kid. But even seeing its flaws, I do think Halloween 5 is a fun movie. I think it's a good time. If you can laugh at the goofy parts, you're going to have a good time. If you're one who likes to play it serious and, Tina making the sounds like just frustrate you to no end, you're going to hate this. If the clown horns frustrate you every time the cops come in, you're probably going to have a bad time. But you just got to learn to laugh at the bad parts and, enjoy the good parts. Enjoy the chasing with the car, the chasing in the beginning, the showdown between Loomis and Michael. This movie has really good stuff in it. And I will stand by this movie. I think it is a lot better than what a lot of people give it credit for. So I think that about wraps up my review for Halloween 5. Again, I think it's super entertaining. It's fun. It has its flaws. But again, I enjoy it. If you're still listening, please feel free to like this episode so it gets out to other people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I do appreciate all that you guys do when you comment and do all that stuff. That's fantastic. Feel free to tell me what you think down below. I bet not everyone agrees with me about my opinion about Tina. So we got Halloween 6 next. Until next time.